Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. I'm so happy you're here with us. It's your host, Annalena. And today I am very excited because I have a guest with me that was on the podcast already several years ago. We were just talking about, was it 2 years, maybe 3 years ago? And now she's back. Welcome, Emmie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just briefly introduce you and then we're gonna share a little bit of all the beautiful things that have been shifted since we talked several years ago. So Emmie Britton is an energy worker, a subtle body therapist, and writer, and she specializes in deprogramming and facilitating a return to source code. The original program, the human system was designed to run. It sounds really cool because it reminds me also of a computer, right? So how we kind of bringing everything back to the natural state. And when we have viruses on the computer, that's kind of the conditioning for the human. And you're also currently about to finish writing a book called Return to Source Code. So really curious
Yeah.
to hear about all of this.
Yeah, it's a lot of people aren't aware that they have energetic fields even. And
Mhm.
you know, the human energetics can get so cluttered up when you're not aware of the field, first of
Yeah.
all, and then you're not aware of all these infiltrative patterns that have been put into your not only your genetic coding but into your energetics around you, and all of the infiltrations that have happened over the years build up and build up and build up, and then all of a sudden you're really cloudy and nobody's connected, to their inner selves anymore and
Mm.
can't operate from that space of clarity anymore. So yeah, that's kind of been my work the past few years, is putting together this, well, it's turned into a book at this point of just information on how to help people return to the origin code.
Yeah, and this, I love this because you and I, we also, I think on the last episode, we talked a bunch about human design because one of the reasons that I love human design and also the gene keys so much is because it kind of shows us through these shadows that we have in human design and also in the gene keys, the not self, who we're really not, even though we think that's who we are, and that's what we call conditioning, right? And the way that I
Mhm.
always see it is like, yeah, we have this original source code, which is, when you're trusting your intuition, you are empowered, you are connected to God, source, universe, however you like to call this. And you're also having the courage to really live your unique life rather than trying to be like everybody else, right? Because that's kind of what's happening in this world, especially with social media. And with these shadow consciousness that you become aware of through human design and gene keys, I started to realize and see, oh, wow, this is not really who I am. This is just the wounded part, something that I bought into, but that's not who I really am. And then I started to also learn that, okay, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not even my beliefs, right? Because we say my beliefs, and then we always try to fix it and reprogram everything. But it's really about letting go of what is not really our truest essence, right? Rather than trying to put on more or trying to be different and just like shedding. So
Yeah,
that's kind of how I see it.
yeah, absolutely. And there's all of these spiritual practices people get into, like for instance, I think meditation is really misunderstood because um you're talking about every, like, clarity as a reductive practice, right? Instead of just piling more on. And meditation, ironically, is often seen as a reductive process, but it's actually an additive process, because what we're doing is surrendering to source,
Hmm.
surrendering to life force energy in meditation. That's what true meditation is. And people get these things all sort of mixed around because there's so much information and
Yeah.
really miss the point that we don't need so many spiritual practices. We don't need so many methodologies. We just really need to shed all of that and just plug
Hmm.
back in, right?
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I think I also was for quite some time on this chase of always another healing modality, and they have the way, and they have the way, and da 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 da. Until I realized I was in this state of always feeling I have to be fixed, and it's something outside of myself. And when we never have the time and space and the patience, I want to say, to slow down and to just be, like you were saying, in meditation, because meditation, I think, is so hard for most of us because there's a lot going on up here.
Mm.
And it can be quite annoying. And we're like, well, I can't meditate, I cannot silence, but it takes time. And the more you do it, you start to realize all these stories that are going on in the head that kind of are nonsense and we have bought into over time. And then we stop identifying with it. And yeah, we can let it go.
Right.
And like you say, it's probably not really that complicated, right? It's not that we need all these fancy modalities, but it's more of a simple process. So I would love to hear, obviously, you don't have to share your whole book with us, but what are some of the key insights in a very practical language for people that they can actually start to apply in their life to return to their highest self, to their source code, like you say it? I love that word, by the way.
Yeah. Well, really, I've in the writing of the book, you when writing a book, you go through all these different approaches first and sort of see what works. And it always comes back to self-worth has to be the key starting point, really.
Mm.
And a practice that I share in the book at length is the practice of self-witnessing, which can be accessed at first really easily through mirror work, through just looking at yourself in an actual physical mirror in a variety of ways. But a lot of people avoid this first step. And I think achieving a sense of inner self-worth, that has to be first before any of this other stuff can happen. Because if you're like, I'm not worthy of this, or I have to work harder at all of these different modalities in order to achieve something, then you're not coming at it from that place of open surrender. Like, this is, here I am, right?
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
me, here I am, and I'm worthy of it. And so, in this process of looking at oneself, it really presents something drastically different than the majority of humans expose themselves to, because most humans avoid looking at themselves at all costs.
yeah. And
Yeah, sure, we look in the mirror to put in our makeup, but we're doing that in order to cover ourselves up, literally. And
good point.
so
That's a good point.
yeah, so we're, even in the most time we spend looking in the mirror, we're only there to make sure we're covered up. And so,
This is,
there,
I love this.
yeah, it's really profound when you realize you've been running from yourself your whole life. You've been running from your own reflection. You've been running from your inner truth. And it's there. That's why you've been avoiding it. You've been very consciously avoiding it your whole life. Just the general population has been. And I mean, people will literally skitter past mirrors unless they're, making sure they look presentable. So when you spend this really in-depth time with yourself, really, you can start by looking into your own pupils, and then in about 10 minutes of looking in your own pupils, you're starting to think, oh, what am I? Because there's these, when you talk to someone like I'm talking to you now, we look at each other's pupils.
Mm,
But when you look at your own very close up for a prolonged period, you start to realize, I'm not what I thought I was.
mm,
There's these deep pools that we're all attracted to in the center of our eyes, and there's nothing there, and there's everything there.
mm,
And so when you open to this practice of just allowing yourself to say, what am I really? Not who am I, but what am I? What is this? What's going on here about yourself, your own body? Then that opens up this space where you realize whatever's in here is not bad. Whatever's in here is not unworthy. Whatever's in here doesn't need to be covered up at all. I
yeah.
love this, in fact. I admire this thing. And you develop this relationship with the self that then takes away the fear, right?
Mm,
It takes away the fear of growth. It takes away the fear of what might be out there, because what's in here is fine.
yeah. So as you were speaking, what came up for me, you call it like self-worth, and it has a lot for me to do also with compassion for myself, because one of the biggest challenges on my own inner healing journey or awakening journey, however we want to name this, was that for the longest time I was judging myself for how I felt deep inside. So when I was feeling scared, or was feeling unmotivated, or I felt powerless, I felt jealous, all the things, right? I made myself wrong for feeling it. And for me, the big shifting point was when I finally realized that. And I realized I cannot heal, I cannot grow and expand if I don't fully accept all of that and actually love myself for feeling this way or thinking this way or believing certain things. And that for me was the hardest part. And I realized in that I had used a lot of healing modalities and things like that, right? To um actually perpetuate the resistance a little bit, right? Because I always felt like there's something wrong with me so that I have to fix it. And when I shifted more into like, no, I just have to accept all of it. And what if there's nothing to fix, just to accept? And this is probably one of the sentences that has stuck with me for all these years that I have been in this like self-development realm. I think I heard it for the first time. It was some kind of meditation or yoga practice or something I was listening to. It might have been an Insight Timer. I'm not exactly sure, but I remember they were saying this like, what you resist persists.
Hmm.
And what we accept really has the capacity to change. And that spoke to me directly to my soul, to my heart. It was just so profound. And all the work I have been doing over these years, especially with the clients I work with, it always goes back to that core. Plus, I have found these energies also back in the human design chart.
Hmm.
There's certain gates and gene keys. I think I would say it's gate 60 and the 25th gene key. Those two energies are all about acceptance
Hmm.
and especially accepting like how we feel,
Yeah.
and letting it be okay.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, of course what you're talking about is witnessing emotion, like witnessing your own experience, which
Mm-hmm.
is the next step. Like you like what I was talking about earlier with mirror work, witnessing the self has to come first, and then you can begin to witness all these other things from that centered place of like love and worth. Like I'm worth looking at my own feelings. My
Yeah.
feelings are worth looking at. My life experience is worth fully experiencing, not just shoving away in a cabinet somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so that witnessing of, there's actually a process in my book subsequently that deals with starting to speak to those feelings and actually start to witness them in the same way you witness your own body, in the same way you would witness another person. And so you can deal with persistent fears or anxiety that comes up in your life by speaking to it and saying, I see you. What are you here to tell me? And really accepting that message, because that's ultimately everything is love. Ultimately, everything is love. Even your fear, even your anxiety, it's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to keep you okay. It's trying to keep you feeling like you're in control. And when you can say, hey, I see the message that you're sending me,
Mm-hmm.
because anxiety is a message, fear is a message, symptoms are a message, it's just communication that's based from a place of, I love you. Like we're surrounded by love, even within our own bodies. Our bodies are contracting out of love for us to try to keep us
Yeah, well,
secure.
it's true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so when we can say, hey, I see you, I witness you, anxiety, and I see, I'm open to hearing your message and just being in that stillness with it and just observing whatever comes up. And it might be, a long distant memory or a traumatic event or just a tiny little random seeming thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's there for a reason, and it's there to perpetuate this cycle of growth for us out of love. And we can say, I see it, and I actually don't need that anymore. So you can go, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And that's this like liberation, because that's the true like transmutation through the power of witnessing
Mm-hmm.
that, you might have already given yourself through your own mirror work, through those other practices of witnessing the self. And it just gets deeper and deeper from there. And,
Yeah.
at this point, I'm facilitating like what people would call house clearings, but call them timeline resolutions, because we're dealing with spirits that need a witness.
Mm-hmm.
These spirits rise up with these, sinister things that they do, flicking on light bulbs and all this other stuff, but they're just trying to communicate because they see someone at a higher vibration. So this witnessing becomes medicine that we can use throughout the whole scope of our existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this so much because what I particularly like that you said is this reframe that even fear is love.
Yeah.
And also if you think about it, this is something I have been learning also through the I Ching because we have the feminine and the
Yeah.
masculine. And there's no one without the other. They are interconnected. And I think we always fall into this black or white thinking as humans, like one is good and one is bad. But
Mm.
without fear, there wouldn't be love either, right?
Right.
And I really like how you say, oh, what if your fear is actually an act of love because it's trying to protect you? It actually means well, based
Mm.
on all the memories and experiences that we have gone through, right? But the
Yeah.
the only problem is that we resist and we push away of what we consider as the negative, the dark, the evil, and all of that, right?
Right.
And everything wants to be seen and witnessed, like you said, in a place of compassion and curiosity, and actually inquire, like, hey, what do you want to try to tell me? Let's have a
Yeah.
conversation, right? And it's also and that's also with ourselves, right? Like when I'm feeling worried or afraid of something, let's talk about it with myself, and
Right.
we try to cope usually and run away from it, numb our feelings because it feels uncomfortable. We watch TV all day or scroll on social media because we don't want to deal with the fear. And then, as we know, it gets bigger and bigger until we can finally have a conversation and actually walk towards the fear. And that's honestly what the Gene Keys Art of Contemplation is about, because
Yeah.
Jud Rudd always says that the gift is in the shadow.
Mm.
And the gift frequency is like that is our most natural state where we want to be more, right? Where we are more
Yeah.
compassionate, we're more loving, we're more accepting, we're in integrity and all of that. But if we do this by avoiding the shadow and trying to resist it, we're never really going to get there. We're actually
Right.
pushing ourselves further away from it. But when we can lovingly accept the shadow part, just like we would hold a child that's crying, a baby, we're not gonna scream at it and like, I don't have to deal with you. Like, see you later when you're happy.
Yeah.
And if we can be like that, I think that's the concept of self-parenting in some way.
Right.
Then, yeah, we're shifting into this higher frequency that is already within us, but it's kind of underneath all these layers of what we have been trying to avoid to feel for so long,
Right.
right? Because somehow down the line we bought into this concept that the darkness is bad, the negative emotions are against us. But
Yeah.
what if it's all here, like you say, an act of love? A love.
Right. And yeah, and what if every particle in the universe is just this frequency of love. I think there's a lot more benevolence in the world than we give it credit for. I think there's a lot more of just just spirits and entities just waiting to reach out and help and just assist in whatever way they're there to assist. And it's really beautiful. And when you can surrender to the fact, which of course requires sort of deprogramming a lot of hierarchical structures in our mindset, that we really are surrounded by help. And
Mm,
when you can tap into that, your entire life changes. It becomes so real that you're just pulling in assistance all the time, and you feel so supported that you can't fail anymore.
yeah, yeah, I love it. You know, it just came to me intuitively because I have been thinking about this recently, and I feel like bringing it up with you because I want to hear your take on it. It has to do with politics. Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Because
fine.
I'm usually like not a one to talk about politics, but I have always this like, I see everything with compassion no matter what's going on in the world. And especially in the US right now, we know it's quite turbulent and we have a lot of diverging opinions out there. But I actually see a lot of good in everything. And I also always know everything happens for a reason. And what if everything that's happening around us, however that feels to you, because I know it triggers a lot of people. And often people feel like the victim of it. Like, for example, that the gap is going to increase with the rich and the poor right now with what's going on in the country. But if we are thinking this way, we're totally losing sight that we are the creator of our life. We have
Mm,
power. And what if we are being asked to practice forgiveness, to practice compassion with others and ourselves? Because I know for myself, anytime when I am experiencing something in my life, if that's in my immediate relationships, or if this is something I see, what's going on in the country or on the TV, there's always something that's reflecting it back to me.
mm,
And I've always learned that if something triggers me, what am I here to learn? What is the lesson here
mm,
for me? Because we are so getting into this like, they're doing this and this is wrong and they're the bad guy and they're wrong and this finger pointing. And we're actually giving our energy to this and we're actually making it bigger rather than, okay, what if this instead is an opportunity for you to actually heal all these triggers? Because I believe that whatever's happening right now in the world is part of the divine plan. And it's
mm.
actually a gift for us to work out certain triggers within us so we can actually let go of a lot of baggage. So
Right.
I don't know, like sometimes I feel like, do I see this too lightly and too bright? But that's my
Mm,
truth. And I feel, yeah, because without something that feels heavy or dark, how can we actually step into the light? Because it is part,
mm.
it coexists. It's the other side of the coin.
Right. And I think what you're touching on is like the concept of radical responsibility instead of a very external locus of control. When you've deconditioned enough or, are in touch with yourself enough through all these things we've been talking about, then you can really see that, um, where your responsibility lies in the collective frequency, because also what you're talking about is collective frequency.
Yeah.
Yes, there's really bad stuff happening for a lot of people. Nothing that I'm about to say negates that fact.
Yeah.
And there has to be an aspect of, what people say, like reality or realism to the whole thing. But it is also just as true that there's a collective frequency in the world, in America, in our communities, in our families, and we can be responsible. We can take that responsibility back
Hmm.
from this sense of victimization, and we can say, okay, what am I going to do with my frequency?
Exactly.
Because that ripples into our families, into our communities, into America, into the world. And that is really powerful, then instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, everything is going wrong, chaos everywhere, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
Then you're feeling like, okay, how am I going to, how do I want to show up? So
Hmm.
that's really powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Because, and this is another energy that comes up as the 21st gene key or gate 21, which is about control. And it's more in the shadow, right?
Mm,
Where we feel like we want to control everything. And there's some things that are out of our control, right?
mm,
Yeah, you can vote, you can speak up for what you stand for, and all of this. But the more we fight and resist what is and put our attention onto this, it actually grows bigger because this is also quantum physics, it's a law. What you focus on your attention on is going to grow bigger. And I'm sometimes like, oh my gosh, like, why aren't we using our energy to focus on our unique gifts? That's why I'm so passionate about human design, gene is helping people to live their genius and share with the world because you have been given a gift. I have been given a gift. We all have unique gifts.
yeah.
And if we're using this to complain about or fight what is, things that are really to a very big extent out of our control, and instead we don't give it much attention, we really focus on what we're here to pour out into this world. And of course, I mean, for some people, it is to be more active in some political things, right? That is also their divine purpose, and they will know this
Yeah.
deep inside and speak up about certain things, right? Um, but just this reminder that we can actually waste a lot of our source code energy if we are in such resistant for what is going on in our immediate, like personal, close life, or in the larger extent in the society or in the country we live in, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is such a it's a crucial moment, obviously, in global politics. And it's infinitely complex, right? But at the same time, with that I think a lot of people right now are sort of like deer in the headlights with it, like, whoa, what's happening? What do we do? And that feeling of powerlessness on a big level, like, well, I can't affect that. It's happening. I can't stop the deportations or, like all of this stuff. Like, what are
Hmm.
we going to do? And so there's this very deer in the headlights view. And obviously things have to be done in the physical world, but there's some of us who are really focused on frequency, right? Who are really hoping, and you have a podcast you're putting out into the world, and
Hmm.
I have a book that I'm putting out into the world, and it's because we've learned to show up at this really genuine, authentic level of our operating from our gifts, operating from why we are here. And if more people can achieve that,
Hmm.
or not achieve, that's not the right word, but tap into that
Yeah.
depth of themselves, then we have so much less chaos, so much less cluttered thinking, and actually we have clarity then. And I think when enough people in the collective frequency can get that clarity of mind and that clarity of purpose and that heart purpose going on, then there will be a tipping point, and
Mhm.
there will be so much more peace and clarity in the collective rather than this victimization and chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it because sometimes I feel that it's my responsibility to speak more up about certain things or what side am I at. But it's like, that's not my job. But my job is more like exactly what you just said, to help people tap into their own power, to help elevate the frequencies, kind of the background work. And
Yes.
the more of us tap into this, we will raise the frequency, and these external circumstances, they will shift from chaos into order. I mean, that's
Right.
the third gene keys, from chaos to order. And I'm sometimes even, and it may sound ridiculous because also there are lots of things that they're heartbreaking that I absolutely don't agree with, right?
Right. Right.
But I know deep inside by doing this work, as we all shift and see this happening, it has to be very disruptive before there's harmony and before there's
Yes.
order in the world, right? So in a way that also makes me a little bit excited because I feel like there is some really amazing shifts ahead of us.
Yeah.
Just like when I am personally in a situation where I'm processing a lot of uncomfortable emotions, where you go like through a dark night of the soul, that's always where the biggest light is on the other side.
Mhm.
And I think that is applicable to an individual as much as it's applicable to the collective. And
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable.
And I love what you're calling sort of the work that you and I do, sort of the background work, as it were, that's kind of behind the scenes. We're not in the streets or something,
Yeah.
protesting, but at the same time, if you go to a play at the theater, there's these people taking action roles, right? There's all the people in the costumes playing the parts, speaking out loudly enough for the people in the back to hear. But then there's also people who the audience never sees, who are lifting the curtain. And if they never lifted that curtain,
They never play what happened.
right. And I feel that that's what people like us are doing right now. We're clearing the air. We're starting to give people the tools to clear their own systems, to clear their own energetic fields, so
Mhm.
that you can see clearly what's happening and see
Yeah.
clearly the direction to take with that action. It can be more aligned, it can be more purposeful, it can be more targeted to really enact the intention behind it.
I love the analogy with the theater. It's so true. And that's the beautiful thing. Like, we have to realize we all have these unique and different roles. That's what attracted me to human design. My teacher was always saying, like, imagine that the world is a big puzzle, right? And every single one of us is like one unique puzzle piece. And if one puzzle piece is exactly like another, it's not gonna come together as the puzzle. And there are people, their role is to protest, right? Their role is to speak up on TV and say something and stand up for certain things. And for others, it's more like, yeah, being in the background. We're not the main actor. We are more doing the lighting, or like you say, somebody that actually opens up the curtain. And that's how it all is so interwoven. And we're all a very unique part of the whole. And it's
Yeah.
the whole only exists because of every individual role that exists within that.
Yeah, yeah. And I've been having a lot of conversations with people recently where, um, for instance, a friend feeling a tad bit jealous of another friend because they're in the same sort of work environment, like the same sort of therapy modalities, right? And it's not really jealousness, but it's just that little old sense of like,
Yeah.
oh no, she's really good at this and I'm not quite as good at that, or she has more clients than me, and whatever. And there's this sense, and I've talked to several people about sort of the same thing, that there's this one way to do something. There's a one way to be what you are, like in your identity. And when you can get past that and be like, well, great, that person is operating in her frequency, operating other people who are attracted to that frequency. So she can work with those people, and I will be totally myself so that I will attract these other people who don't resonate with her frequency. And
Yeah.
then I'll have those, and it's like not in like a getting way, but in like, who can I serve that's not being served because I'm not being me, you know? And there's all these different people out there. And if you just see this limited scope of this is what, subtle body work is, this is what energy work is, this is what massage therapy is, all of this is what chiropractic care is, then you're not really fully putting out a beacon, a frequency beacon to say, here I am, you know, the people that need me come here, or the people that need this frequency come here. So there's so much beauty and so much just amplification that's possible when we've stripped down all of these infiltrative programs and just tapped into us and let that be enough.
Yeah, I love this because I have this conversation actually a lot with my clients. And I was there myself for a long time because,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do one of the things is human design. And if you look out there, there's a lot of people teaching human design. And you could be like, we're competition, right? That's how the ego
yeah.
would see it, the not source self. And what I have come to realize, like, it's not what I'm doing. It's not the human design. And I've had actually clients remind me of this, like, Annalena, it's not the human design, it's you,
Mm,
how you lead the session, it's your magic.
yeah.
And when we realize this, also, I think there's something in the Gene Keys that has helped me with that. It's called your soul fractal. When we are operating from our pure and most authentic essence, we naturally attract the people that are aligned to be in our life or to become our clients. And if that's one or if that's a million, that's not up to us to decide, right?
Mm,
But when we are out of alignment with our source code, we are more in this hustle and grind. We're trying to push and force, but then we may also attract people that are not actually aligned for us, and we create more friction than beauty and transformation, right? So
mm,
it's then also about like really trusting and surrendering into allowing the people to come into your life that are meant to be served by you, or where there's a connection that's meant to happen. So, um, yeah, I love how you explained it because that's
yeah.
yeah, I see this so much, and especially also in the coaching space or
Mm,
entrepreneurship. I think in general, it can easily look like there's not enough, but there is more than enough for everyone when you can
yeah.
trust and really be yourself. When we're trying to find the answers outside of yourself, like if that's a fancy marketing strategy or a fancy 5-step funnel, yeah, in the short term, it may get you somewhere, bring in some more bucks in your bank account, things like that, may make you feel like you're on top of the world for a short period of time. But nothing can give you that sense of fulfillment and really inner prosperity from the inside out when you can lean into this divine plan. Because it's about, are we listening? Are we allowing that to happen, to flow through us? Or are we trying to be smarter than that and trying to force our way in a direction that's not aligned for our unique source code?
Yeah, yeah. And that concept again that you mentioned earlier of like, everything being a mirror again.
Hmm.
Those times when people may be in an entrepreneurial space and they're like, this just isn't working, I don't have enough clients, I want more clients. And then if they get those, then it's kind of like a dopamine hit.
Hmm.
And it's not really a real deep, lasting, fulfilling thing because then they have to look for the next one,
Yeah.
instead of just being like, putting out this frequency of, which obviously it's more complex than what I'm making it sound like, but putting out this frequency of, like you said, there's plenty, there's plenty. I'm attracting the right people at the right time. All of this is just coming together because it's so aligned with, your divine alignment. It's just all starts happening because you are so magnetic in yourself that
Hmm.
even if you're not really trying, people are coming to you and being like, hey, what's your deal? Could I get a session with you or whatever?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. The other thing that also comes to me, so talking about returning to your source code, I think for so many, even guys you're listening right now, what you're currently doing is not at all what your source code is. And we have to let go and let go and let go and be completely in the unknown, in the void, because what is really aligned for us or for you may be widely different than what you're currently doing. And I think also it can shift over time. And
Mm,
I have learned this a little bit the hard way because any time where I bought into this is how you have to do it, this is how you have to make success, following like these blueprints and certain formulas, right? I was in such a limited field of possibility because I was operating from what I already know exists. Yeah, I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to have clients. This is how I'm going to build my business. But what if what is meant for my source code is so much bigger
yeah,
and has maybe nothing to do with that? It's something that hasn't been there before, you know?
yeah,
And of course, where we're at right now is probably a stepping stone to there. But when we identify with it too much, and sometimes I think we're trying to force something and trying to prove ourselves that, well, I did it, I had this successful business and I have to make it work, or only if I make the 6 or 7 figures, like I have made it. But if that's not your aligned path, like what are we risking, right? Our well-being at the end of the day. And that's why I'm
mm.
such a big fan of like taking it slow, taking a step back, shedding, letting it go, returning, like you say beautifully, to source code. By the way, when is your book coming out? Do you already have a date?
I'm finishing it this week. I've got a publishing deadline in July that I'm working towards to
Nice.
propose. So yeah, I'm not sure yet, but hopefully,
But
as soon as possible.
yeah, it's coming, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I really believe, including myself, I feel honestly very aligned already with what I'm doing, but I'm
Mm.
realizing more and more, and I'm seeing this right now in my reality, that these very unexpected opportunities coming to me as I've been doing this work, it's like nothing I could have planned for ever,
Mm.
right? And it's
Yeah.
more like life is showing me where my alignment is.
Mm.
And I lean into it through following what feels right in my body, which also includes getting out of my comfort zone, especially because it's the unknown, right?
Yeah.
It may feel effortless, but it's also scary because
Right.
it is something we haven't done before. And yeah, it just requires a lot of like being in the unknown and like where it doesn't make sense oftentimes and just like let life show you the way.
Right. And yeah, something you just touched on is like the boxes we put ourselves in with an identity or with a business model or
Mhm.
any of these other things. And for anybody listening that might find themselves in that place of like, well, I'm not in my alignment yet, like, and I'm trying to make it work and all of this stuff. Look at that structure, look at that box that you're in and speak to it. And this takes some bravery, like you're saying. It's very scary, especially with identity, because you don't know what else is past your identity. And it's like, who would I be without this box? But if you talk to the box and you're like, you know what? I'm open to opening up because I want to see what's out there and I'm willing to be a little scared. I'm willing to get nervous. I can hold it. I can do this. I'm safe. Maybe even talk to your body, like where's the fear coming up in your body? Sort of rub that spot, tell it it's safe, this is okay to do. Um, and we're going to open the box now and we're going to see what's past that sense of identity or that sense of running your business or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
But really get that's just always my thing with anything. It's like relate to it, make it a relationship
Mhm.
because the whole world is made from life force energy. The whole world. We know this now. We know everything is energy. So why not talk to it? Why not
Exactly.
relate to
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Why
yeah.
not develop relationships with literally anything that comes across your
Mm.
path?
I have done this a lot with money, and that has been a game changer for me because I used to feel separate from it, and until I realized one day, like, well, let me talk to it, and then things started to shift because there was
Yeah,
honest, transparent relationship, and I was also honest to money, even if I felt like not so good about money, I was just saying it, and because I have noticed in my human relationships, when I'm being honest, things just go so much better. And like you say, everything is a relationship. I so agree. Yeah. That's a
yeah,
that in itself is a game changer.
it
Yeah.
really is. And it's so true. And it's something pivotally that your logic mind can get on board with as well.
Mm.
Because, you know, it's a very established, proven fact that everything is energy at this point.
Yeah.
And if everything is energy, that also means it has a type of consciousness. Um, and it might not be the normal way we're used to communicating with humans in the human manifestation of consciousness, but why can't you develop that? If you're made out of the same thing as, you know, a tree or even as money, because it's all life force energy and that's what we
That's right.
are, that's what
Mhm.
our cells are, you know, then why not develop communications?
Yeah. Communication is everything.
Yeah, it is. And we see, you know, if you apply that to your relationship, like you're saying, then it makes perfect sense. And if you can relate to anything, then you're missing out on a massive amount of interactions in life that could be beneficial and helpful and beautiful.
Mm. And just because you can't see something doesn't mean you can't talk to it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's the
And
same
I
with
think that, yeah, I think that is why people like with the money stuff, you know, people who use altars and things like that, they will put actual, if they're developing a relationship with something, they will put an actual form of it, like a dollar bill or whatever it is, on the altar so that their intention is, you know, developing this relationship with the energy behind it. Or, you know, if it's a plant or something, a spirit behind it. Um, yeah, and giving yourself, you know, that concrete, if listeners are not quite in the abstract space that we're talking right now, giving yourself that concrete item, you know, can
yeah.
also help.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, like a symbol, obviously money, we still have bills and coins we could physically talk to, even though everything is like more digital. I think I don't even know the last time I went to an ATM, to be honest. But yeah, if there's something that symbolizes God for you, right? And then you talk to it, or if you call it source, or anything in your life where you want to shift and transform, let's have a conversation, you know?
right. And I think too, something I hear from people a lot is kind of like a fear-based perspective, which I used to have as well when I first started working with energetics, because I have a severely just like very closed-minded evangelical background. I was raised in a very culty church, so I had a
Mhm.
lot of programming to unwind there when approaching the whole scope of energetics. And what I always tell people who are kind of in a similar space that I used to be in is just say, I only allow frequencies and entities who serve love to enter my field. And
Mm,
that's something I use for everything. It's just my boundary that I set. I only allow frequencies and entities who serve love to enter my field. I do that when I'm working with anything intentionally. I do it when I'm doing any sort of practice where I'm connecting with guides or spirits, or even my energetic work that I do for clients. You know, that's the barrier that I put around it. We're only working with frequencies and entities that serve love. And so then you can have that sense of safety, you know, no matter what your background is, no matter where you're coming from, that's you're sovereign over your energy. And if you establish that boundary, that's all that's going to be in there.
yeah, I love this. Thank you so much for sharing. So, how can people find you online, and who are the people that you work with? Like, who's your ideal client? What would you say?
I think my ideal client is the people that resonate with what I put out there, you know. I That's the only way I can describe it right now, because some of my clients are just very different from others. And I think my ideal client is just someone who's totally open to themselves. That's the most important piece for me, because I don't want people coming to me. Don't come to me if you want me to fix you. You're already fixed. So
Mm,
I don't want people who are like, I need an energy worker to
yeah.
help me with this. I want people who are like, I'm ready. Let's go. You
Mm-hmm.
know, who are like totally radically open to themselves, and just there, But I have an Instagram account. It's called Kin_energetics. Kin as in family, Kin_energetics. And that's where I am mostly right now. And that's where I'm talking about book stuff and sharing that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I wish you all the best for your book launch. Definitely let me know. I'm happy to share with my audience when it's coming out.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, and what's one final nugget of wisdom that you want to leave the listeners with?
I always tell people remember that you're safe and loved. And that's what I tell my kids as well. And I think not enough people in the world have heard that often enough. We're ultimately safe. There's a plan going on, behind the scenes. There's so much benevolence around us at all times that we can learn how to access. We're ultimately safe despite the situations in life, and we're just inescapably loved. There's no way you can get around it.
I love it. Thank you so much, Emmy. It was such a beautiful conversation. We went so much deeper than I thought, and it's really fascinating how we have both evolved, I feel, because I know we had a very deep conversation years ago. And because this is not something I can talk with anyone about, it's sometimes, yeah, it's like we say, we're the background workers, like we have our own lingo.
Yeah.
It's just really, really beautiful. And I also love how we are doing very, very similar work, but in such a different way. Like I cannot do it like you, right? And you cannot do it like me. And we use very different tools. Like I'm super into human design and gene keys, and you're writing the book and the source code. And it's the same at the end of the day, but we need to communicate it in different ways because I know for myself, there are concepts I have heard years ago. And I have to hear them from all these people. And then the 10th person, it finally like, oh, now I get it. Because they said it in a way that speaks to me, that I understand with where I'm at on my frequency level, right? And also because we are meant to energetically be more drawn to some people than to others. And there can be literally two people. It's the same in school too. When you have a child that is going to math class, and it may be the same subject, a different teacher. One you get an F, one you get an A, right? Because it's just the energy dynamics, and one is meant and one is not meant to be, right? And so I just love it, and that's why I'm also always about this idea that, or the truth that we are not competition in any way or form, right? Like even if you would be doing human design and gene keys, like please, the more the merrier, because if it has been so profound for us in our lives, and just let's keep sharing the love and the magic. And thank you for that reminder, because I agree, that's a reminder I need more often. We all need more often, that we're safe and loved. So thank you for
Yeah.
that. It feels really beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for everything that you do.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I also, my intention is definitely to, like I call, like live in my genius, return to my source codes, to really utilize the gift that I have been giving. I feel like it's my damn responsibility,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do that, even though some people may disagree with us. But if that's my truth, it has been placed there for a reason to be shared with others. So thank you for being on this journey with me, and you listeners. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. There was so many nuggets of wisdom, and I'm super excited to be back with you all on the next episode. Bye, everyone.